Hi everybody, Alexander Diaz here with Corvallis Acupuncture and Functional Medicine Clinic. Today we're talking about chronic depression. This unfortunate malady affects hundreds of millions of people worldwide, and it's also a cause of humanity's negative interactions with the environment. In other words, as we are depressed, we become not able to help and to benefit for the stewardship of the planet. And as the planet degrades, as environmental health and human culture degrade, it causes more depression and a positive feedback loop. So it's absolutely vital for ourselves and for our families and as practitioners, as patients, that we work on healing chronic depression. Unfortunately, it's rather misunderstood in the sense that it's often treated with either a pharmaceutical, psychological, or psychiatric drugs, or it's treated through the thyroid. But ultimately, it's not very well understood and not very well treated. So through my own deep dive into my own chronic depression, which has been with me my entire life, I've managed to create some really excellent healing and to really improve my happiness and my belief and hope in humanity and my cognitive wellness. And so I offer that here as part of effort to help people understand and heal their chronic depression. So what I'll do is I'll offer each cause of depression and then what I think is the best therapy for that. So the first one is ancestral and epigenetic trauma. Science is showing clearly that the experiences and the suffering of your direct ancestors has a big impact upon you. So for example, if they were starving, it means that you have a more likelihood of metabolic disorder and of having challenges around your metabolism and eating. But this goes across the board. So most of the people who are adults today, who are in the older generations, they may have actually lived through war or trauma. In the case of China, Great Famine. And most of the people who are younger adults today are the children and grandchildren of those who actually went through the same thing. And this is true in America and worldwide. So this is very painful, and it's very difficult, and it creates a cause of depression that's beyond even our own choices that we've made, the mistakes we've made, or our character, lack thereof. It's really just what carries to you from your ancestors. And so, for me, I found the best way for healing that is actually shamanic work. That could be with or without the use of shamanic plant and mushroom medicines. But engaging in this work in an ethical and well-managed setting where the patients are safe and where the intentions are clear and where the patient is ready physically and emotionally to handle and process that work and then be brought back into the fold of regular living. Those are very effective. And ancestral trauma, the reason I list it first is because it's a huge unseen shadow in terms of chronic depression. So the next one is adverse childhood experiences. Many, many, many people have adverse childhood experiences. That can include if they are not getting their basic needs met, but it's also if their ego, their existing sense of self, is under threat because of a family dynamic, because their identity is not allowed or accepted by the culture that they're living in, because of stuff that happens within their peer group or experiences that are traumatic to them, such as abuse, child abuse and rape, things like that. So basically, adverse childhood experience is the #1 determinant of health later in life, health or disease. A friend of mine, Dr. Alan Meese, down in Arkansas, he's the head of pediatrics for all the state. He says that if we could do one thing to benefit health, it would be to secure a healthy childhood for children from prenatal up to 3 years old, because it is the #1 marker of fate medically for people. And so what we can do once we've already been through that childhood is, well, we can use psychotherapy. And a good psychotherapeutic process with a trusted person that you can count on and be with for a period of time is huge, because you start to identify your own narrative and what were the things that came up in childhood that sort of run your life subconsciously now. And so this is also very impacted by the epigenetics. In other words, your parents have the same genetics as you, more or less. They're suffering through that lineage trauma as well, but your version is going to be unique and different, and you may have more abilities and support in dealing with it. And so a third cause of depression is synaptic habituation, and with that I'm also talking about the amygdala fight-or-flight axis. So our synapses and the way that our brain functions is that the more repetitions that something happens, that we think a certain type of thoughts and act out on them, the more easy it is for our mind to go down that same rabbit hole. And we often find ourselves after the fact thinking, gosh, I really acted out. I really didn't make the right actions. I really wasn't thinking straight. It's because these are mental habituations. And they're very strong. They're very challenging to break. And a lot of the time, we go into autopilot because of trauma. And the amygdala, which is in the hindbrain, becomes activated. And then people kind of just go through a similar routine of what they're used to. And it's usually that that routine was created in their early life as a survival strategy, either survival physically or survival egoically and emotionally within a family constellation, etc. And so in many cases, those strategies were like the only effective way for that child to survive with an existent sense of self. But when they play out in the adult life, and they're done subconsciously through the amygdala axis, they end up causing perpetuating trauma and perpetuating challenges. So the way to work through synaptic habituation, to me, is largely through Dharma practice, meaning Buddhist meditation, and also Buddhist studies, because there's a tremendous amount of insight and of enlightened masters who have helped us through the years to understand how habits form in our brain, and then to use calming techniques, especially during stress situations, so that you can reduce your amygdala operating and act from the front brain, which has better cognitive processing and emotional processing, and be able to have compassion. And then the more often you make that choice and follow through with that, the more that you form a beneficial synaptic habituation, and you're more likely to go with that. So it's kind of a numbers game based on effort over time, and your meditative practice, which is usually done like first thing in the morning when you don't have any stresses heaped on yet, that gives you the juice to kind of invest in making beneficial changes in your synaptic habituation. So another cause of depression is current environment. There can be pollution and toxins, there can be real dangers, there can be a host of things about somebody's, what neighborhood they live in, what city, and also the household itself. And their workplace is usually some of the big ones, occupationally, that add to our depression. Artificial light, artificial sounds that are grating on the nervous system, things that are exhausting, that don't let us sleep in a natural circadian rhythm. All these contribute to depression. The most important thing for patients to cure the current environmental thing is a sense of worthiness, a sense of like, you're worth moving and changing your environment. You're worth potentially ending relationships that are hazards to you or that are contributing to your depression. And it's possible to do it, and you can do it, and how can you do it? And sort of eliciting this in an interviewing way. And of course, most importantly, that they get safe. So if they're being abused or if they're unsafe, that they get to a place of safety. That's within our ethical demands on us as practitioners. So another cause of depression is not just the actual environmental stresses that you're going through, but it's the referential stress markers, meaning how does the stress that you're going through trigger you in a way that it looks like this thing when you were disempowered, like for example when you were a child making your survival strategies. So a lot of times adults who are actually fully empowered and like fully able to walk away from a conversation or fully able to defend themselves or call the police, etc., are living or inhabiting the state of the child who is locked into place and unable to save themselves. And they're running through this mental pattern, and it exhausts the adrenals, and it causes depression. So a lot of that, the best way to heal it is helping your patients to understand what's actually happening. And this is a little different. So in healing adverse childhood stuff, it's best to use like Jungian or other psychotherapy. But in healing referential stress markers, I suggest EMDR, which is eye motion something. And this is very supportive to actually helping somebody to stop their dissociation and enter the association, the centeredness of like, this moment is not the moment that it feels like it references. So that's a really crucial fine point in terms of psychology. So another piece of depression is just blood sugar and neurological nutrition. So your basic blood sugar, like right now, influences your depression. Your overall regularity of your blood sugar, as measured by biomarkers like hemoglobin A1C, also influences depression. And the nutrition, like, there's certain fats, there's certain minerals and foods that your nerves and your brain and your neurotransmitter production, your glands, they all need. And so if you're lacking in these things, it can really influence you negatively in terms of your emotional wellness. And so there's tons of other resources and like how to nourish this. But suffice it to say, the best way to test this is called functional medicine. So when trying to heal the blood sugar and the nutritional deficit that underpins depression, you have to test, and you see, your basic blood test, and also you see your vitamins and minerals test. And you figure out, okay, I've got to really regulate my blood sugar. So you go with a paleo, natural health diet with a lot of abundance, and you go with the right exercise, the right circadian rhythms, you decrease stress, and that'll help your blood sugar regulate over time. And this cascades in health. This really just benefits down the line your emotional wellness. And then you get the nutrition that you need. You add the supplements, the vitamins, the beneficial power foods, and you give your brain and your body what it needs to function correctly. Okay. So another piece of depression is what we call in Chinese medicine the 5 emotions. So this can be like the liver is too powerful and the kidneys are not enough energy, and so you have anger. Or the kidney is not functioning so well, you might have fear. Or the lung is full and junky, you might have grief. Or you might not be able to really have a definitive sense of self. So there's a lot of this. And it's not just done biomedically. This is an energetic level, an auric level, spirit level, an organ level, energetic medicine. And so a good practitioner of Chinese medicine can really help people with this and help regulate and also give lifestyle advice to regulate the 5 emotions. Like I was told, I have to walk in nature in order to soothe my liver, which is the wood element. So that's what I do. Okay. Another huge piece is the gut microbiota and the positive feedback loop that it has with your habitual brain synaptic patterning. And so healing the gut microbiota is difficult. It's very difficult. A lot of the time we've taken tons of antibiotics. We might have parasites. Even if we don't have one of the identifiable parasites, it may be a lot easier for not good bacteria or yeasts to grow because the environment is like empty of the good flora. So to really heal the microbiome, you do all the other things to decrease your stress. You benefit your perception of your stress, you benefit your actual stresses, you get safe, you get food, you get your blood sugar. As you do all the things that I've listed so far, you at least reduce the amount that your own mind is messing with your gut flora, because stress really destroys the gut flora. And then you can take on actually improving the gut flora, and that has to do with probiotics, prebiotics, and substrates, which means, the probiotic bacterium, the live bacteriums that benefit us, the prebiotic, meaning the fermentable, soluble starches, that the bacteria love to eat, and then substrates like kale and collard greens and like fibrous living vegetables that as we put through, we give them a sort of a space to gestate on while they go through the intestine so that they can then take root in the intestine itself. And then again, in terms of gut dysbiosis, you use the functional medicine testing usually through a stool sample, and this is going to tell you, okay, you have excesses of these, toxic or parasitic things, so you have to kill them, and then recolonize and benefit. And the other thing, it's not available in America, but you can get it globally, is fecal transplants, where they take a healthy fecal donor and insert some of the dead bacterium from that person into your gut, and it helps you recolonize. This is actually life-changing, apparently. I haven't done it, but I hope to. Another big cause of depression is sleep and the circadian rhythm and the access to sunlight. This is more and more studied. The trick with this is, okay, natural light as much as you can, and get rid of all your fluorescents and try to make sure you don't have even any LED lights with flicker. I recommend just like a soft, even a red incandescent bulbs, and then cut off the screen. I mean, 8:30 should be like you finish, like maybe you watch one show and it's finished at 8:30 and then you just close the screen and that's it. You don't look at a phone, you don't look at a screen again. And that's going to help you sleep better. And then dark in your room, like really dark and as soundproofed as you can with fresh air that you sleep in. And go to sleep, get in bed 9:30 so you can catch this wave of sleep and drop in. And then you can usually get up, 5:30 or 6 and still have plenty of energy. And so the other thing is getting natural light, so after dinner you take a walk. You go to the nicest place that's local to you and you take a walk. And as your body watches the sun go down, your brain starts keying in that it's time to sleep, and then you get a deeper sleep, And so the other thing is for causing depression is suppressed emotions. And this goes back to the Chinese medicine thing, but just simply psychologically. If you don't allow yourself to express emotions, or if you use substances to suppress emotions, they get stuck. And this causes cancer, it causes all sort of grief and pain. The emotions have to flow. They have to flow. They have to flow through sound, they have to flow through tears, through expression, through physical somatic movement of your body. Many of us don't move enough. And so it's really important for yourselves and your patients to let the emotions free, to let yourself feel them. And many people are afraid that if they actually feel their emotions, that it'll destroy them. But it really won't. It'll just help them feel something, and then they'll take a deep breath, and they'll be better, and they're ready to work. But this is just not something that's commonly understood by people. So we can support just a healthy expression and taking away the suppression of emotions. And then I guess the last bit I want to mention is the one that's most commonly treated by psychiatrists, which is abnormalities in the neurotransmitters or the endocrine system, which will be treated by an endocrinologist. A lot of the time, this is really like a downstream externality or effect of the other causes, but it is real. Like, there are people who have neurotransmitter imbalances and like need to be treated, at least for a short term. But the trick is when doing that treatment, make sure you're not ignoring the other factors, and make sure you're on a clear support for the person to step away from those drugs and then cleanse them, because they really do have a lot of nasty side effects. Going to a real psychiatrist who is one that's going to make sure you're also in therapy and check in with you how the therapy's going and be willing to change your doses with regularity, that's sort of the definition of a good psychiatrist in my book. So getting a good psychiatrist is how you heal that. And so the trick is, overall, you try to hit as many of these waypoints as you can. You try to affect as many of these things as you can. And the more spiritual and heart energy that it liberates, the more you can invest in furthering it. And lo and behold, a year later, your friendships are thriving, you're not angry at people anymore, you're forgiving somebody, and then some more stuff comes up and some more challenges, and then you cry. But it really is possible to change chronic depression, and I've done it. I feel so much better. I mean, I was even close to suicidal some years ago, and I just feel great. I feel ready to heal others, ready to buy the land in Costa Rica, ready to serve the earth. It's really possible to get to that point. And so if anybody has any questions or comments or needs help, feel free to email me. The link is below. I love helping people and sharing this information. And so thanks so much for watching, and subscribe if you can. Thank you. All right.